Hey guys, for today's video I decided to do something a little bit different. As you all know, I've been uploading Music Mondays videos for about the past 2.5 months or so, and I've finally gotten to 10, which is, a nice milestone to reach at this point in time. So I decided to go through each one of the songs I've made and kind of give you a little behind the scenes, a little backstory, a little of what went into each of the process in making them. And, I thought it might be interesting just to, provide my input on this. So, I guess let's get started. The first song I ever made, I used Reason, by the way, which is a program made by a company known as Propellerhead. And it is very nice for just making music in general. The first song I made was Untitled. A comment I put in the description to leave a comment to name it, and it eventually came to be known as Organ Funk. Nice name, but when I was making this song, it was the very first thing that I had made with Reason, after I'd owned it. I had already tried out Reason that someone else had owned, and then I had kind of, found out that I liked using it and wanted to get it and saved up money and etc. But it was really just me trying to play around with things, and I think it turned out pretty well for a first song. Okay, so maybe that's kind of misleading. It wasn't my first song, but it was my first. It was my first song on my YouTube channel, meaning that I had other songs that I had kind of started before that weren't as good, that I didn't want to release because they just were of a much lower quality, and I don't know, I just didn't like them too much. So, Organ Funk, first real one. And there's not much to say about that. It's just kind of, I wanted to make something that would use a bunch of different instruments and sound decent, and I think I've achieved that goal. Moving on, number 2. Originally, Showdown. Originally, instead of guitar, it just had more horns, and I showed them to my brother. He thought it sounded very similar to the previous one. So I decided to change the horns over to guitar, and that actually surprisingly sounded a lot better once I put a little bit of a distortion on that. A little bit, not a ton. So I'm actually pretty happy with how that turned out. I was going for kind of a darker feel with this, and it definitely came out as such. Number 3 was Last Legs. Yeah, this one was directly inspired by one exact moment in The Fire Beneath. I don't remember what the area was called, but I was doing really well, it was all going very smoothly, and all of a sudden I died. And that just kind of completely interrupted everything, and I went from alright, we're doing this, to crap, I don't know what I'm gonna do now. And that was kind of where the title Last Legs came from, the desperation of suddenly failing when you thought you were doing well. This one actually did something kind of interesting in that it transitions from 7/4 time to 4/4 time, and at the time I didn't know how to do that within Reason. Now that I've fiddled around with the program a little more, I know you can just change the time signatures and it won't actually have an effect on the song that you currently have standing, but I wasn't aware of that when I made the song. So what I actually did is created 2 different Reason files, one in 7/4 time and one in 4/4, and loaded them both up into my video editor. What I did then is kind of moved around the audio files until they were right at the right moment where it wouldn't sound awkward, and just kind of made it fade into each other. You can hear it right as you can kind of hear it during the transition. I actually got it synced up pretty well, so it's fairly unnoticeable, but so that's the only song that I've made not only in Reason, but also synced up using video editing, and then just kind of rip the audio from the video file that resulted. Kind of interesting. Next is number 4. Oh right, Fahrenheit -451. I actually wasn't sure what to call this. I only got the idea because I was thinking of calling it Absolute Zero, and I happened to notice the book Fahrenheit 451 just sitting on my desk, and I'm like, I wonder what Fahrenheit -451 is, and so I looked it up, and it was about 4 Kelvin, which is right around the lowest you could possibly go in the possibilities of science. Obviously you can go a little bit lower, but as you get lower it gets more and more implausible. But let's not go into the science of this. Basically, this one This one was actually interesting. It started out as an attempt to make a more chiptune kind of thing, but as soon as it kind of got off track, I guess you could say, where the song kind of brought me in a different direction than what I was expecting to go to. The main, I'm not sure how to describe it. The first main thing I made was actually using a more chiptuney, more digital kind of sound, and that just kind of blends in with the rest of the song as more of a theme of ice and snow, and it actually worked pretty well considering at the time there was a lot of snow going on where I lived. To be honest, the snow really hasn't let up much, but still. Alright, number 5. Number 5 is kind of special because there are two versions of it. There was 5A, which was Nirvana, and 5B, Open Road. And both of those I'm a fan of. I made Nirvana first because I wanted to make a song that was a little more calm, more relaxed, especially because the 4 songs I had made up to that point were all relatively quick tempo, high energy, and this one a little bit chiller, just to represent something calm. It was okay, a little bit boring, but that's kind of what I was going for. With that song, I then took it, deciding that maybe people would be kind of disappointed. Like, they would think I'm like cheating out of a weekly update. I don't know. People probably didn't think that, but I wanted to get something that was a little more music and less ambience. So I took the same things, messed around with the timings of the different bars, and rearranged it by changing all the instruments into Open Road, which is a lot more energetic and kind of gives you the feeling of exploration. All in all, I'm really happy with how both of those songs turned out, and I thought it was really cool how you can take the same musical patterns and rearrange the instruments, tones, tempos, etc. to make it a completely different song. So that was kind of cool. Next was Iron Jungle. This is the first one that was actually chiptune, as opposed to, my botched attempt at number 4. But this one was also interesting because it was in 5/4 time, which is a pretty irregular time signature. You don't see that often in many different songs. There are only 2, relatively general public popular songs. There are, of course, a lot of songs that aren't as well known, but there was one song by OK Go called, WTF, and I think that was in 5/4 time. But I'm getting off track here. This one, I was really happy with how Iron Jungle turned out. And originally, I was going for just kind of a mechanical feel, but near the end, it almost gave me... See, I'm not sure where the word jungle originated from the title, but the vibe of the song, especially near the latter portions of the loop, kind of just gave me this tribal, more feeling of wilderness, almost, and I wanted to incorporate that into the title, so that's where that came from. Number 7 was probably the one up to that point that I had spent the most time on, not because it was necessarily difficult to make, but just because at that point I was getting a little bit burned out, to be honest. I did take a fairly lengthy break after number 7, and I always have more coming in the pipeline, so it doesn't really show in the video uploads. But, Avenging Afterlife. This is the first track where I learned that I could play with automation. Now, automation is essentially you can take a value, such as the distortion of the organ in the very beginning, you can kind of hear it ramping up, and make it change over time, subject to specific parameters that you set. So you can see it in how the choir kind of fades out at the beginning. And I don't really use it too much in this song, but this is the first song where I actually use it to do things. So that's kind of note. Otherwise, this one's pretty good. The one issue that I have with it is that the beginning part is significantly quieter than the rest of it, so it kind of baits you into turning your volume up and then blasts you with a lot louder music. So I would, if I ever re-release these, I would probably turn down the volume in the second portion just to make the audio a little bit more balanced. Otherwise, I'm pretty happy with that one. Number 8, Hills and Valleys. That was... this was actually directly resulted from just kind of boredom, really. It had gotten to a point where I hadn't made a song in a long time, and I was just kind of itching to get new music out, and I wanted the one where I came back to making music, something simple and something memorable. So I started out with the little chorus that plays sometime in the song, and from there I just kind of made a couple bridges between those choruses, and that was that. Originally it only had the piano and the drums, and it was kind of empty. I don't know. So what I did is I made another channel for another piano, and just kind of made the piano a lot more complicated within that. So I think that helped. And also during the second loop around, I added the strings and that weird little, I don't know how to describe it, the rhythmic kind of wave instrument. If you listen to the song, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, but I kind of added those just to make it a little more variety based, especially when you're hearing those choruses for the third and fourth time. I wanted something different, something to make it not as boring of a song. I'm very happy with that one. That's probably one of my favorites that I've made, just because it's easy to listen to, simple, fun. Number 9. Alright, this is actually kind of interesting. Blizzard at Dusk is actually the last one in this list that I've started. I started it actually after I had started the new Super Mario 3D World medley, but it was the one I released earlier because the 3D World medley wasn't finished at the time. That one was in the works for a while, but I'll get to that later. Blizzard at Dusk came as a result of an early dismissal. For those of you who don't know, I'm currently in high school, and it was a time where there was a lot of snow going on, so the school actually dismissed early due to the amount of snow that was coming down. So I remember sitting on the bus and looking out the window at all the snow coming down, and all of a sudden I'm thinking, like, maybe I should make a song that kind of draws upon the feeling, because it was a really interesting feeling, just kind of having to go home because of the weather encroaching upon you, just becoming even more of a threat and actually disrupting the flow of your everyday life. So Blizzard at Dusk kind of represents how something on the horizon can cause a little bit of panic and even upset you a little bit. Obviously, the song wasn't meant to upset you, but it was meant to show the foreboding nature of a lot of basically a Blizzard at Dusk. One part of the song that I really like is the bell. I actually turned up the reverb a little bit on the bell from its original form for the full release, because I really like that bell. It reminds me a little bit, for those who have played Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, it reminds me a little bit of the bell in Chapter 4, is it? Yeah, Chapter 4. Make of that what you will. But, yeah, good song. Dark. Yeah, a little darker. Definitely darker, considering the title. But, yeah. So, song number 10, or I guess 9, depending on how you classify it, it was started before Blizzard at Dusk. Blizzard at Dusk was a very short, kind of 2-day song, while this one took a long time. Basically, I wanted to make it as kind of a celebratory thing for not only 10 weeks of Music Monday, but also because I really do enjoy the Super Mario 3D World soundtrack, and I think it's a little bit underappreciated. There are a lot of songs in there that really don't have a lot of exposure, and so I put the titles of each song that is remixed in the description of the video. I think in there there's, I don't know the exact number of songs, but there's a bunch. And let's see, the one thing I would change about it is probably the intro. It just sounds a little bit weird to me, but that's just a personal preference. I feel like during the course of the song, something interesting is you can actually see how I was able to put more work into each section as time went on, as I got more used to building and remixing different songs from the soundtrack. For example, I didn't use any automation until about halfway through the song, But as soon as that happens, every single section from then on uses automation in some way or form, and I think it adds a lot. I'm definitely going to be using automation in different songs and changing the values of different things like gain, volume, etc. because it can add a lot to music, and I didn't think I realized that until I made this, really. And then the video editing portion also took a while. This, without a doubt, the Super Mario 3D World medley is the Music Mondays that has taken the longest. Just in terms of from start to finish, it has something to do with the fact that I did kind of get burned out during the middle of it, have to take a little break, but then get kind of remotivated again by Blizzard at Dusk, and then finished the medley soon after that. But it did undoubtedly take the longest to finish, whether it was making the song itself or editing the video that went along with it, which is pretty comprehensive. I'm happy with how that editing went. But yeah, I've gone on too long about this. Anyway, all in all, pretty good 2.5 months of Music Mondays. I do have a couple more songs that I've already made that have yet to be released, but, you know, you'll see those in the next couple weeks. I'm pretty excited about them, and I'm fairly confident that as I continue to practice and get used to the program, then the music I produce will continue to increase in quality, and, you know, I hope that's evident in what I'm producing. If not, then maybe I've got some practicing to do. Also, it's worth mentioning that there have been a lot of projects that I've made that have just completely gotten scrapped. Like, I've built a few lines here and there thinking, okay, this is going to be my next song, and then just, nah, this isn't going to work, and deleted. Maybe I shouldn't be deleting them? Maybe I should be kind of saving them and waiting to come back to them on a later date? I don't know, what do you guys think? Whatever. In any case, there's going to be a lot more Music Mondays in the future, and I hope you enjoyed the little insight into the Music Mondays that are out now that I just presented. So, in case you have any additional questions about what went into this, feel free to ask in the comments. Until then, tomorrow's video is going to be something special. Let's just say that. And, again, thank you for 100 subscribers. See you guys next time.